Good evening and welcome to Homeless Perspective Live weekly update on this Sunday, January 17th, 2021. I'm your formerly homeless host, Tim Houchin, broadcasting to you from Anaheim, California. Once again, apologies, all are in order. This program was originally scheduled for last Saturday night, and it was to air at 8 p.m. As some of my viewers are maybe already aware of, I suffered an illness and led to the canceling of the program on the previous Saturday night on January 9th. Hopefully most of you were not too disappointed about missing last night's program. It was because of a snowball effect from last week's illness that caused me to get behind on the production of the program. Tonight's is a very important program, and I didn't want to compromise the message by not being totally prepared. And that required postponing the program until today. But I promise you this program will be one that many people will look forward to seeing every week at a consistent time in the future. So we will continue working towards that goal moving forward. Okay. Tonight we have a very special guest. Haven Wheelock is a program director for Outside In, a Portland, Oregon area nonprofit that provides a number of substance abuse related services at several clinics there. And she's going to share with us some information specifically regarding a program at Outside In that provides fentanyl testing strips to homeless clients that are actively using street drugs that are oftentimes laced with fentanyl, which is sometimes 50 to 100 times stronger than that of morphine or heroin, and much less expensive for drug dealers to make than street heroin. And about half of all overdoses among the homeless population that end in death can be contributed to the presence of fentanyl found in street dope and ingested oftentimes by the user unknowingly. According to Haven Wheelock, the fentanyl testing program has been saving lives. And as far as I'm concerned, if this program could save the lives of our homeless brothers and sisters here in California, then we need to make these testing strips available to them immediately. Then that's what this program is about today. After the interview, we will open chat for discussion about this topic or any other topic that you feel necessary about discussing. But before that, here are some of the latest homeless news stories for California from this past week. A growing number of elected officials statewide have announced their support for AB 71, the Bring California Home Act, which seeks to create affordable apartment units and rental assistance through money generated from a proposed tax increase on some California corporations. According to Assemblywoman Luz Rivas, a Democrat from Los Angeles, the bill would create $2.4 billion annually by restoring 1980s era tax rates for corporations that make $5 million or more in profits a year. The money would allow the state to create affordable housing and rental assistance for 28,000 people a year who are at risk of becoming homeless, provide safe shelter for 25,000 people and families, provide permanent housing for 43,000 people, and give additional services to 50,000 people. This bill is sponsored by a coalition that includes LA Mayor Eric Garcetti, Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf, Sacramento Mayor Darrel Steinberg, and the organizations of Housing California, Corporation of Supportive Housing, All Home, Brilliant Corners, the Episcopal Community Services of San Francisco, and many others. Okay, on Thursday, Sacramento Mayor Darrel Steinberg announced the city would receive $15.3 million for rental assistance through federal stimulus funding. Steinberg also announced that he would be seeking approval from city council members on Tuesday to roll out 60 tiny homes in the next 30 days. Here's a news clip from KBC 10 Sacramento.
This is so important because we can't continue to have what's going on in our city.
The plan is to designate certain areas of public or private property in Sacramento for small tent communities where homeless people can live temporarily. But city council members have to approve it for their districts first.
We cannot plan to plan. We have to actually take action.
With the goal to bring people inside as soon as possible, he says he's looking to get approval on some tiny homes as well.
I am proposing that we direct the city team to put up at least 60 tiny homes on the same vacant parcels, any one of the vacant parcels, within 30 days.
Mayor Steinberg did not specify the sites. That will be up to the city council members. But the city already has 8 of these pallet homes ready for installation when the first site is found.
The city needs to be proactive, both in locating the sites, but also working in true partnership with the community to actually make these projects happen. It's not enough to just say, well, you can set up a tiny home village or a safe campsite, and good luck. It's not enough.
This is all what Mayor Steinberg calls an interim step to provide shelter quickly until the city works to adopt a homeless housing master plan in which city council members will work within their districts to identify locations for homeless shelters. This master plan will also look for financing and operations for those shelters.
Okay, the annual death rates of people experiencing homelessness in Los Angeles County continues to rise, according to a recently published report by the county's public health department. The leading cause of death, as it has been for the past 3 years, is substance overdose, and the powerful opioid fentanyl has played an increasingly significant role in those deaths, the report said. Fentanyl is a powerful synthetic painkiller similar to morphine, but can be 50 to 100 times more potent. A dose as small as 2 milligrams can be lethal to most people, according to the National Institutes of Health. The drug spread can be attributed to its relative ease to create and distribute because it is much easier to make fentanyl than to create opium, and the drug can make it through shipping systems in smaller quantities. But the rise in deaths is a different matter, according to the LA County report, because it's hard to tell from autopsies whether a person killed in a fentanyl-related overdose used the drug knowingly or if the fentanyl was cut into another street drug without their knowledge. Tonight on the Homeless Perspective Live Weekly Update, we will be talking about the use of fentanyl test strips that are being distributed to homeless persons that use street drugs in Portland, Oregon, in a program there that has been saving lives. Haven Wheelock from Outside In, a nonprofit in Portland, will be here with us in an interview, and she will share with us the success that the program has seen since being implemented there a couple of years ago. We have a stock video clip here from CNN from 2019 that further explains fentanyl testing.
What does this strip do? And I'm interested, is there any evidence that people who use it and find fentanyl in their drug don't take that substance, at least at that moment?
Right. So it's really two great and very separate questions, Poppy. So these strips seem to work quite well at detecting fentanyl. So when people buy heroin and cocaine, they don't realize that it's often, as you said, laced with fentanyl. And fentanyl is just so incredibly powerful. So this test works like a pregnancy test. You just dip it in. It only takes a minute or two. You dip it into drugs as you're preparing them, and you see if it has fentanyl or not. Fentanyl is 50 times more powerful than heroin and so incredibly dangerous. And so the theory is that drug users would say, oh, well, I better not do these drugs.
Right.
But that's the theory. The question is, are they going to say, no drugs today, or I'll have to go buy some new drugs, or are they going to be so anxious to get that high that they'll do the drugs anyhow? They could also decide to take a smaller dose of the drugs, take less of them. But again, will they make that decision even if they know there's fentanyl?
Right, and that's a question. What I find interesting is that even though this could be a life-saving measure, there's some pretty ardent opposition to this. I know the head of the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration vehemently opposes it, saying, this gives a false sense of security.
Right, that same argument was used, if you remember, Poppy, during the time of the needle exchange programs when those were beginning. And that was giving drug users clean needles to help stop the spread of HIV. And people said, oh, you're giving these drug users a false sense of security with clean needles. Well, I'll tell you, public health experts will tell you that these needle exchange programs were so successful. I mean, they really did reduce the spread of HIV. So that argument, there's some problems with that argument.
All right, so that's it for the headline news for this week. But coming up, our interview with Haven Wheelock. She's a program director for a nonprofit in Portland, Oregon that provides a number of services for homeless persons there that are struggling with addictions. And she's an expert on harm reduction. And if you don't know what that is, she's going to explain that to you. She also will tell us that after these messages, okay? But we'll hear from Haven Wheelock right after these messages. And then we'll open up for chat.
Imagine yourself surrounded by space, grace, and $1 million view. Here's a spectacular riverfront home site in an exclusive community. A secluded lane is perfect for privacy. This open floor plan beckons natural light and fresh air throughout. Stunning spaces are flooded with sunlight. You'll enjoy entertaining in this spacious kitchen.
Hundreds of thousands of families are one paycheck away from being homeless. You can help.
Best in town.
We would like to hear your opinion on today's topic or any other topic that you would like to see discussed on our program. Just send us a message from our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/homelessbrother. All right. Haven Wheelock is a graduate from Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. She has worked in harm reduction for more than 14 years, and she coordinates the needle exchange program at Outside In Portland, Oregon. The Outside In Needle Exchange was one of the first programs of its type in the nation and the first to be publicly funded. Haven spearheaded the effort to establish and to expand the use of the naloxone to prevent opiate overdose deaths. Following the successful effort to advocate for a change in the law regarding naloxone, Haven began training clients in the use of naloxone and distributing naloxone to people she had trained. Now, her efforts were instrumental to achieving a 40% drop in the heroin overdose death rate in Portland over the next year. Okay, please welcome Haven Wheelock. First of all, let's do this. Let's have you introduce yourself to my audience, okay? And then tell me a little bit about what you do. Okay. All right.
Awesome. So I'm Haven Wheelock. I run the syringe exchange and overdose prevention program, our harm reduction programs at Outside In Portland, Oregon. Outside In is a nonprofit, federally qualified healthcare center that also runs the third oldest legal syringe exchange in the U.S. I also have a master's of public health from Johns Hopkins with a focus on overdose and addiction services. So my day-to-day is working with people who are injecting primarily heroin and methamphetamines, most commonly both. And we serve about 4,000 unique individuals, exchange over 2 million syringes a year, distribute naloxone to hundreds of people every month. And I've been doing this work for 19 years now. So I've been Outside In since 2006. Does that cover?
Yeah. Okay. I think that's good. Now, go into, give me an idea of the types of services and programs that you guys offer there. Maybe a little bit about each one.
Yeah. So
I mean, there's quite a few, I know, but just, give
you want me to focus on the drug user health services or the agency as a whole?
The one that I'm really interested in is the fentanyl testing.
Okay.
Because I think it's a little bit misunderstood. And I heard about it first. I never even knew about it until I was in Portland in 2018.
So our agency is big and complicated and has a lot of things going on. So basically, we have two general overarching branches. We have our homeless youth programming that works with folks who are under 25 who are experiencing homelessness. And then we also have our health services side. So that's our federally qualified healthcare center, our syringe services program, a couple other programs fall under that umbrella. So our school-based health center, we have several clinics actually that we operate. And our focus with our FQHC has always been, we're also a healthcare for the homeless clinic, or affiliate. So our focus is primarily folks who are experiencing homelessness, regardless of age in our medical clinic. Our services, our syringe services, which I can speak most prominently about because that's what I run, is anyone over the age of 18, according to Oregon state law. So we serve folks anywhere from 18 to 80 plus, right? I don't have many clients that are 80 plus, but we have some. And people don't have to be homeless to access our services in the syringe exchange, right? They just have to be people who need access to syringe exchange. So we do operate our syringe exchange. It's 5 days a week. In our fixed location, we also have 2 outreach sites that we operate 3 days a week, providing services. We offer naloxone, which is the antidote to opiate overdose to folks. And we give out injectable naloxone to anyone who needs it. We offer HIV and hepatitis C screenings on site at all of our locations to prevent the spread of HIV and hepatitis. And then I think it was 2017, we started distributing what are called fentanyl test strips. They're actually an off-label product. They're used as a urine drug screen to test for fentanyl. However, the harm reduction community has really taken up using them to help folks figure out if there is fentanyl present in the substances they're using. And so we've been able to validate that you can actually test the substances itself using these test strips as opposed to after you've already taken it. Right. And so we distribute these test strips for folks who want to know if what they're using contains fentanyl or not. And so they're just a little...
You use it for other drugs other than just, say, heroin, right? It can be used...
Yeah.
Other street drugs?
You can. There's different protocols depending on what they are, on how you prepare to do the test, but they are used to test many, many substances. They're a really useful tool in terms of knowing if fentanyl is present or not. They get a little tricky in that they don't tell you. So when we talk about fentanyl on the street, we're talking about a class of drugs. We're talking about many different types of drugs as opposed to just a specific drug. So they can't tell you what kind of fentanyl it is. They can't tell you how much fentanyl there is. And they can detect very, very low amounts of fentanyl. So it's a really imprecise tool. There are better tools being used in very few places that can tell you a lot more information than what the test strips can.
Explain to me a little bit about the different types. I was never aware. I just,
Yeah, no. And it's a really common misconception that when we think of fentanyl, we think of prescription fentanyl, right? That is a very good medication when used properly. It's commonly used in hospital settings.
They gave it to me when I had my knee replacement.
Yeah, it's good. It's short acting. It's powerful. It's good medicine when used in the correct way. However, when we're talking about the fentanyl that's on the street, that's not what we're talking about, right? This fentanyl is being made in labs across the world. Anyone who claims to know a country is probably a little bit racist, but they're being made in labs that are basically what they're doing is little variants. So they change a little molecule on the fentanyl. And so they're often called illicitly manufactured fentanyl. or fentanyl analogs, right? Because they're similar to fentanyl, they work the same way, but they're just a little bit, they're tweaked just a little bit. And what that does is it like leads to a lot of variation in how potent they are, how quickly they cross the blood-brain barrier, like all of those kind of things. So like there's variation with how potent acetylfentanyl is compared to, furanlyl fentanyl, compared to like another type of fentanyl. And so it makes it really risky to use in that way because you never really know what you're getting.
Is there, let me ask you, is there a preference for fentanyl? Is there anybody out there that's trying to get fentanyl to get high on? Yeah.
Sure. I mean, I think like with anything, people prefer what people prefer, right? And so I think early in the fentanyl uptick, people didn't necessarily prefer it, but we're starting to see more people now that do actually prefer it. And that's, again, and that's where it all gets really messy is that, and what makes it risky is that, when people, I kind of think about it like the Coke versus Pepsi thing, right? Like some people, you start drinking Coca-Cola, you're going to have a preference for Coca-Cola. You start drinking Pepsi, you're going to have a preference for Pepsi, even though they're both cola. And I think that there is, especially with newer users who don't know what the experience of using real heroin is, all they've ever known is fentanyl. It's very different for them than like someone who's been using a long time and remembers what it's like to have heroin that doesn't have fentanyl in it. And that's just real, right? Like people are going to do what people are going to do. And so the more we can let people know what's in their drugs, the safer their use can be. Because what we see is that people who find out that there is fentanyl in what they thought was their heroin tend to change their behaviors. They may still use the substance, right? But they're more likely to use with someone else, which means that if they do overdose, they're not alone and someone can help them. They're often, when we test on site, if we test something positive, people will like refill their naloxone to make sure that they have enough naloxone in case something happens.
Naloxone is a medication designed to rapidly reverse opioid overdose. It can very quickly restore normal respiration to a person whose breathing has slowed or stopped as a result of overdosing with heroin or prescription opioid pen medications. Naloxone is delivered by injection or by a prepackaged nasal spray under the pharmaceutical name of Narcan.
And so the more we can tell people, the more
So is that important to have like both handy, the antidote, the naloxone? Is that important to be able to provide that as well?
I think providing anything is better than providing nothing, right? It's all helpful. For me, having the antidote to overdose on hand is always important, right? Like regardless of what you're using, it's an important medicine to have around. Just because you never know, especially if you're using substances, our drug supply is really poisoned right now. We're seeing fentanyl in all kinds of things that we would have never anticipated seeing fentanyl in. And so making sure that folks have that antidote can save lives. But if you can't provide naloxone, then you still can provide fentanyl testing for folks, because again, there are things people can do, like making sure they have a phone before they use, right? Making sure they're not alone. Those are really important things that people can do to prevent overdose. And if people know that, people often will just say, yeah, I'm still going to use this, but I'm going to use a lot less. I'm going to see how it goes. I'm going to do a little, see how it is, and then decide
What about the cost of like running a program like that? Okay, what you say you don't do the testing yourself? You just give the strips to the clients?
We do both.
Okay.
We do both. We give, since we initially, when we started the program, we did the testing on site. Primarily just, I was doing all of the testing for folks. And then we got some money to be able to like give out the strips to people who need them. And so when we got that funding, we were able to like really ramp up how many strips we give out. And, you know, and then people weren't necessarily like the people that are coming in to test their supply with me tend to be people who don't trust themselves to do, like they want some kind of validation coming from like, Haven said this, or this, right? Because they believe that people will believe them more if I test it than if they test it themselves. So
that's a relationship. If people trust you like that, then that's good. Is that part of the protocol for your program? Is to build a relationship and maybe take the opportunity when someone comes in for a test strip to maybe pitch to them sobriety or.
So we operate on a harm reduction model. So pitching sobriety is something that we're not pushed. Like it's all about what the client wants when they want it. So if someone
explain for my audience, because not everybody might understand harm reduction. Give me a rundown on harm reduction.
Yeah. So harm reduction is basically the idea that everyone does risky things and what can we do to help people be as safe as possible. So there's a lot of different ways, like there are tools of harm reduction, like syringe exchange, like naloxone, like testing, like test strips. Those are all like tools of harm reduction. But really the idea is our job as harm reduction providers is to meet people where they're at and accept that people are valuable and worthy of love, regardless of what substances they put in their body. And then really to help folks be as healthy and safe as possible, right? And that can mean all kinds of things, right? Like if someone says to me, I'm so overshooting drugs, my next question is, great, what are you thinking? Do you have a plan? Like, how can we help you stop? Like,
okay, so like rather than like I said, I use the word pitch. Okay.
Yeah.
But your with your idea of harm reduction and stuff is maybe to have those services available, right? Rather, there's not such a big pitch, but they are available. So if somebody asks,
oh God, yeah, the safest way to do drugs is to not do any, right? Like,
yeah. So that was my next question. Was kind of like an idealist, okay, would want complete abstinence, but how do you pitch this to that idealist? I use the word pitch again. Okay, I don't know what it is.
Yeah, no, it's fine. So I mean, I think sobriety is something that many people want and can achieve, right? I think that is like, I know plenty of people in long-term recovery. I know plenty of people who, are sober off of all substances, probably other than caffeine. I don't think I know anyone who's not using some caffeine sometimes, but, I know that is a thing that people do achieve and can achieve. And, it is also not necessarily what everyone wants. And even if that is what people want, we live in a society where achieving that can be very hard. And so being really realistic about like, if I couldn't get everyone that accesses our services into treatment in the next year, if I tried, right? If I had a magic wand and could be like, you go to treatment, you go to treatment, you go to treatment. Like that's just not realistic, right? And so what harm reduction provides is a place for people to increase their safety, right? Improve their health and linking people into the care that they deserve when they are ready to access that care. And if people aren't ready to access that care, they still deserve kindness, love, access to health, access to like other services. And so I also think it's really important that if we agree that addiction is a chronic relapsing condition, we want to make sure that people, if they are resuming use after a period of sobriety, have some tools and some safety, like a safety net under them, right? So throughout the pandemic, we've been seeing a lot of people resuming use. In our exchange, people I haven't seen in this space in years coming in, they lost their job, their housing is really insecure, they're really struggling, and have resumed using substances. And I want to make sure that those people, especially if they're using in secret,
because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So do you feel like you are like the only safety net for a lot of these folks?
Yeah, I do. I mean, and I don't say that to like pat myself on the back. I say that because that's what my clients are telling me, right? Like I regularly have people come in and tell me this is the only place in the city that they feel safe.
Okay, I would like to give a special thanks to Haven Wheelock for her words today. The fentanyl testing program sounds like it would be a miracle for many people who struggle with opioid addictions, no matter if they are housed or not. Now, it's my belief that in time of crisis, which these times certainly are, that hard decisions have to be made to protect and preserve the lives of persons that are most vulnerable in our society and the least likely to be able to protect and preserve themselves. I'm not sure that fentanyl testing is available here in California. I never heard about it until traveling to Portland in 2018. Then it's capable of saving lives here. Let us know about your opinions about providing fentanyl testing of street drugs for our homeless populations that struggle with addiction and are likely at risk of a fatal fentanyl overdose every time they use. I would also like to hear any other thoughts about harm reduction philosophies when dealing with homeless persons who are not able to deal with opioid addictions on their own. So we'll give a few minutes for the comments to come in, and otherwise, if we don't get any of them, I'll have to take the ones that come in after the program publishes. And I don't see any, and probably because I missed my scheduled live shot last night. Anyways, so what we're going to do is we'll go ahead and wrap it up, and you will leave your comments and recommendations, suggestions, whatever it is you have for me. Leave it in the comments, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible on that. Okay, so let's go ahead and wrap things up for this episode of Homeless Perspective Live Weekly Update, and we'll return next Saturday night at 8 p.m. Thank you, and we'll see you again soon.